Let's close our eyes for a moment. Just a minute, nothing complicated. And we start the class with one time singing Om. Okay? Okay, slowly open your eyes again. Okay, yoga. Many programs, professional programs, structured programs like this program, they consist for a large part out of physical anatomy. You have to memorize all the parts, the muscles, the joints, the organs and what have you, and you have to do an exam. But there is no traditional yoga book that keeps itself busy with physical anatomy. The reason for that is that yoga considers that everything exists primarily out of energy. The foundation for everything is energy. Your physical body is only a manifestation of that energy. If the energy is not good, the physical body is not good. So when you're not good, your condition is not good, your health is not good, do not treat the symptoms, restore the energy. And the health problems, conditions will disappear, will be healed. So that is exactly what we're going to do. We're not going to talk about bones and muscles and joints and organs. We're going to talk about energy. Energy consists out of two opposing polarities that in this model symbolically is reflected. There is plus and there is minus. The dark side of the yin-yang model is yin energy, while the light side is yang energy. So there are many ways to indicate those different sides. There's plus and minus, dark and light, feminine and masculine, etc. When you study technique and you learn about electricity, they talk about plus and minus. What you get from the electricity from the consent in the corner, when you plug in a device, there are two plugs. One receives plus, the other receives minus, and together they make your appliance function. The one alone doesn't work, either of them. It's the same with life. Everything in the universe, including the human being, organic matter, consists out of plus and minus. The yin-yang model is not just reflecting the plus and the minus, but the reason why it is drawn like this, including the opposing characteristic, the dark side has a light eye, the light side has a dark eye, is indication of harmony. Now life thrives when there is harmony. Harmony, however, is rare. As a human being, coincidentally, if the circumstances are right at the right moment, at the right time, you may experience harmony, which translates as a sense of heaven, paradise. More practically, when you experience harmony, there is a sense of well-being. This sense of well-being is not a luxury to enjoy. Of course, you can enjoy it. But technically, there are many implications as a result of that harmony, because it leads to the manifestation of characteristics in the human being that do not manifest if there is no balance between the plus and the minus. So one of the things that yoga leads to, if you practice yoga correctly, that is very important. It has to be practiced in such a way that harmony occurs, the balance between the yin and the yang. It leads to a manifestation of certain potential that all of you and me carry around without manifesting. And the reason why it doesn't manifest is because the lack of harmony. That is one thing. It is important to notice that this is not just a decoration. It looks nice, it looks mysterious. Some people wear around the necklace, around their neck, a yin-yang model. Some people have a tattoo of a yin-yang model, or an earring, or a ring around their finger. But it has a very deep meaning. It is in fact the model of a human being. And what it means is that as a man, I have a feminine quality. As a woman, you have a masculine quality. The white eye and the dark eye are not decoration. They reflect, if you understand what this is about, a deep reality about life and about harmony. I look like a man, but I have feminine characteristics, if it is correct. I say if it is correct because many men are afraid of their feminine characteristics. They oppress them or ignore them or deny them. But to be harmonious as a human being, you cannot ignore those other qualities. And the same, of course, goes for women. Women have masculine characteristics. We will come back to this in lesson 12, where we go a little bit deeper into it. Very interesting. Yoga promises all kinds of things. It promises healing, but it also promises higher consciousness, spirituality. So yoga is surrounded by a veil of mystery, mystique. Because we don't understand the mystique, it becomes dogma. You ask questions, then when you get your answers, it actually often leaves you with more questions than that you actually have your questions being answered. The reason for that is all ancient books are written in symbolical language. If you take that literally, it leads to radicalism. It leads to fanaticism. There is a meaning behind the symbolism that is much more benign than the original text. And that's very important to understand, because most of the conflicts in the world today find their roots in the taking literal of the holy scriptures of the past. That applies to yoga books, but it also applies to the Bible, the Quran, and other holy books. If you practice yoga correctly, without you realizing it, again and again, every time, you create the balance between the yin and the yang. Very gradually, almost unnoticeably, you transform, you change, because those potential characteristics everybody carries with them without manifestation, they very gradually start to manifest. Intuition, wisdom, deep insight, but also natural, not dogmatic, natural spirituality grows in you. It's all about energy. And in this case, these manifestations are fueled by harmony between yin and yang. So that is the anatomy that matters in yoga. Take care of the energy and miracles happen. Much more than when you keep yourself busy with physical anatomy. Now, why do we need yoga? Why are we not naturally in a condition of harmony? That is because in the universe, there is this overriding principle that energy has a tendency to condense. Symbolically, that has been reflected in the Bible. There is a chapter called John, and the chapter John starts with a sentence. This is very mysterious, because there is no explanation after that sentence of the meaning of it, of those words. It says simply, first there was the Word. And then some story unfolds without explaining what this first sentence means. First there was the Word. Yoga goes out from the same principle. First there was the word. That word is not a spoken word, it's a vibration, which in Sanskrit we call Om, but you probably know it as Amen or Amin, depending on where you come from. Amen, Amin, Om are all the same. That is the first word. There, the story of the universe coming into being starts. In the Bible, that is not explained in the same way as in yoga. The yoga story is more practical, simple. The universe, before it started materializing, was simply pure harmony. That is the condition in the Bible described as paradise. Pure harmony. As long as there is harmony, balance between yin and yang, Shiva and Shakti, we call that in Sanskrit, there is no manifestation into matter, just pure energy, harmonious energy. So this is Om. First there was the word, pure harmony. The story in the Bible then continues that there was a disruption. In yoga we say a subtle desire occurred. In the Bible described Adam and Eve committed a sin. They ate the forbidden fruit, the apple from the tree. Subtle desire is simply a disruption in the harmony, and the vibration changes. It's not purely harmonious anymore. That vibration continues to increase in frequency. Until the vibration is so strong that manifestation into matter occurs. This moment here is what in Sanskrit is called anu. We call it atom. All matter starts with energy. First, there is pure energy. The whole universe, including on Earth, including your body, is subject to a natural law where energy has a tendency to condense. You understand the word condense? It becomes thicker and thicker. Energy you cannot touch, you cannot smell, you cannot hear, feel. So energy condenses and becomes gas. Gas continues to condense and becomes liquid. The liquid continues to condense towards the bottom, and you have solid matter. So your physical body, solid matter, is the end product of that whole process. Now, something tragic occurs as a result of this process. We're still talking about harmony here. And to understand why we need yoga, we have to go through these steps so that you have an insight. In what? In energy? No, in yourself, your own condition. Because you are a ball of energy. That energy has a natural tendency to condense. And that is where our struggles begin. That is where our problems begin. Ideally, you would like to be in paradise. Who wouldn't want to be in such a wonderful condition? We have superficial ways to attain that. Eating a nice strawberry ice cream, going on a nice beach holiday in Bali or Thailand or southern France or something, or whatever is your favorite place to go. A nice meal at your favorite restaurant. There are all kinds of ways to create at least a moment of harmony. But it's always gone very quickly. It's superficial. The reason why German cars are so expensive is because German cars are built to also give you a moment of paradise. Driving a car simply, when everything is built to perfection, gives that sense of harmony. That is why people are willing to pay 3 times as much for that car compared to other brands. The whole system of yoga is designed to go against that natural tendency of condensing. Because as a result of that condensation, the condition of this condensed energy is called tamas. That is energy going down, condensing. What are the characteristics of a condition of tamas? It's negative thought. A vicious cycle of negative thought. We all suffer from that. Depression. Disease. Disease is caused by a condition we call tamas. Darkness. All psychological problems Normally, instinctively, without understanding all this, people who have at least some discipline, they will go to the gym, or they will ride a bike in a park or on the riverside, or you go jogging, or aerobic, or because every time you feel down, every time you are in a tamas condition, when you move, you feel better. You understand this, right? You experience this on a regular basis. So that's good. Tamas, because of movement, turns into rajas. So now you have a condition caused by movement that generates expanding energy. Tamas is a condensing, contracting energy. Rajas is expanding. And we like that. When we focus on our study, when we focus on our work, which is mental activity, but activity nevertheless, we have a sense of euphoria. The same when we exercise, when we are physically active. That sense of euphoria lasts as long as we keep engaging, focusing, moving. You like that, and you want it to continue, but that's not possible. Because you become tired at some point. And when you are tired, fatigue, in the extreme case, exhaustion, is an indication that you have gone too far already. So here you were out of balance, and it didn't feel good. It was dark, it was negative, it was depressed. However, you change that condition to a positive one, but it doesn't last. You get tired, exhausted, you have to give up. You cannot continue to move and keep going with that sense of euphoria and that positive feeling. And what happens? Because neither is balanced, you crash. You're so tired, your body demands rest. And when you rest, you naturally go into a contraction again. So you go inevitably, unavoidably, you go down again to that condition where you don't want to be. Ironically, this is the rhythm of nature, the rhythm of the universe. So it is natural. And yoga is the amazing science of taking control of the rhythm of nature, more practically, taking control of your condition. Now, in normal life, without taking control, we are in a tamas condition when we wake up in the morning. If we don't start moving, we will eventually start feeling sluggish and like you become lazy and languid and sluggish, and that eventually start to affect you mentally, and you become depressed. You become blue. So, and anyway, the normal rhythm of nature is that when the morning, when the sun rises, you wake up and you start doing things, from taking a shower to breakfast to leaving the house and going to work or to school or taking care of the family. Anyway, you start moving, and that feels good. Inevitably, you become tired. If it's not evening yet, there are two things you can do. You can take a nap, if you have the time, the luxury, or you drink a cup of coffee. You fuel your rajas, your condition, with caffeine. So from tamas, you go to rajas. Inevitably, you go to tamas again. So the pattern of a human being is like this. Because of this pattern, we're never in harmony, we'll never manifest those higher characteristics like wisdom, intuition, deep insight, and natural spirituality, because those only occur when there is harmony. And harmony does occur now and then by coincidence. If you find yourself in the perfect condition at the right time, the right moment, the right place, that is not enough to evolve, to grow. Yoga is designed, let's use another color, to reduce the fluctuations. You can never eliminate them completely, simply because it's nature. There is always day and night. There will always be tamas and rajas, but if you practice yoga on a fairly regular basis, you reduce the fluctuations considerably, allowing you more and more to be close to the condition that we call sattva, harmony. So, rajas is expanding energy, where you experience acceleration, excitement. Tamas is the opposite, where you experience laziness, depression, negativity. The condition that we are looking for is called sattva. Now, strange enough, many yoga teachers have never heard of sattva. And if they have, it's just a superficial concept. But sattva is the golden line in everything that yoga offers us. We are going to read the Hatha Yoga Pradipika chapter 1 and 2. Everything is designed to reach sattva. Your insights, your knowledge, the discussions that we have here, the lectures that I give you, are all designed to lead more sattva, which practically translates to more peace of mind, less conflict, internal and external conflict. The exercises that you learn, from the physical exercises, asana, to the meditation exercises, to the energy control, it's all designed to allow you to come closer to sattva. So this is crucial, and yet many yoga teachers either have not heard of it, or it is just a superficial theory that they have learned something about but do not know how that applies in daily life functioning. Sattva. So we will come back to this many times. It's part of everything that you do. So the practical benefit of practicing yoga is that you develop characteristics you may not have possessed before. It translates into you developing qualities to be a manager. Because your increasing insights leads to your ability to solve problems. To solve problems, you have to have insight in what's going on and what is causing it, and more importantly, how to solve that problem. So you become a natural manager, you become a natural troubleshooter, which you will apply in the first stages to your own life. You will reflect naturally on your past and start putting all the pieces of the puzzle into place, connecting all the dots. As a result, eventually, when most of that work has been done on personal level, you will start expanding it to your environment, to your workplace, to your family relations, situation, etc. So many practical, wonderful benefits ensue from taking control of your energy, of your condition. And it sounds complicated. It's not. It's actually very simple. Provided that you practice yoga correctly. It is so simple that many people cannot believe it. Cannot believe that it works. Questions about this? We will come back to it because it's really what yoga is all about, the foundation of yoga. Okay? Can you turn it off and turn it on? Thank you. Okay, then we have the planned subject, which is Ahimsa. So, lesson 1, Ahimsa. Ahimsa is non-violence. When you ask people what is yoga, people will say yoga is exercise. Other people will say yoga is meditation. Some people understand that yoga is both exercise and meditation, which is all designed, by the way, to come to sattva. Right? But yoga doesn't start. Yoga has 8 limbs. The 8 limbs of yoga start with Yama, which is moral principles. Then you have Niyama, which is moral precepts. I will explain. And only the 3rd limb of yoga is asana, or the physical exercise. The 4th limb is energy control. The 5th limb is pratyahara, detachment. An element of yoga that is almost always ignored or explained in a very superficial way. We spent 2 full classes explaining pratyahara, detachment. It is so important. Then the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th limb of yoga, that is what constitutes meditation. Starting from concentration, leading to meditation, eventually ending up becoming contemplation. So we start not with asana, physical exercise, we start with Yama, the moral principles of yoga. And the first Yama is Ahimsa, non-violence. Why do you need non-violence? To come to harmony. Internally, we are full of violence without even knowing it. So, in many courses where the yamas and the niyamas are being discussed, they discuss all the yamas in just 15 minutes time. And they will say, Ahimsa, non-violence, don't kill your neighbor. Subject closed. Is that helpful? No, it's so obvious. We live in a world, we have reached at least to some extent a level of civilization that we know that we should not kill our neighbor. But non-violence can be very subtle. Non-violence can be subconscious. And that is why it is an important subject that deserves enough time, ample time to be discussed, so that you can start observing in your own life when violence occurs, either coming towards you or coming from you, and that you understand that it is happening without you realizing it. First of all, violence begets violence. And often it ends up in a vicious cycle, getting worse, escalating. It's human nature, instinct, fueled by ego, that leads to that violence. and that escalation. So when you recognize that, you know you're only human, we all are. So violence is in everybody, no matter how holy you are. The difference is that when you know it and you understand it, you recognize it at the moment that it happens. You live in a city with 12 million people. There is violence everywhere. There's so much negative energy, so much aggression in the street, in the subway, in the bus, in the supermarket, everywhere. If you pay attention, you notice that it affects you. Now, when you are in a situation where you experience violence, you have a tendency to react to that instinctively. From now on, pay attention that when you speak harsh words or push people physically, it always leads to a counter-reaction. A counter-reaction which you wish would not occur. And then you start pointing fingers and blame the other person. While in fact it actually started with you not controlling your subconscious instinctive reaction. Why is this important? Sattva. The qualities, the characteristics that we want to manifest, wisdom, intuition, natural spirituality, that only occurs, and it occurs best, when there is sattva. If every time we are distracted, we fall from paradise, literally, we fall out of this condition, sattva, when we allow ourselves to be drawn into that aggression that surrounds us. It's no surprise if you walk in the street, you see many tensed faces, tight, tensed faces. Go to the countryside, small village, and what you see? All smiles. It's not that they tell each other so many jokes, or that there is so much humor. It's just naturally those people in the countryside, city people tend to look down on them for their simplicity, but they smile all day for nothing. Why? Because these fluctuations are not being triggered all the time because of the environment that they are living in. Now that we are living in this environment, we might as well try to take control of that. And it starts with ourselves. Don't blame others. That doesn't mean that others are not to blame. It means it is useless to blame others. The only way to solve the problem, which is your condition, is to always start with yourself and stay with yourself. And if you're surrounded by people that continue to push the boundaries, that continue with their aggression, it means there's only one option. Sooner or later, you have to change environment. You are the boss, you have to take charge. What is very important, what is very interesting about the yamas, we have 5 of them. Non-violence, non-lying, non-stealing, chastity, and non-desire. They are natural laws. I'm not telling you anything new. Intuitively, you already know this. Intuitively. Subconsciously, however, you're not putting it into practice. Emphasis on subconscious, which means you are acting and reacting in ways you're not aware of. And that is what leads to the constant fluctuation between these conditions. So control of energy starts with control of your functioning, with control or awareness of your thought processes. And that is where yoga comes in. And when you reduce the aggression, internal and external, life changes enormously. Not only for you, but for the people you are living with. I remember when I started practicing yoga, it changed my life. Years later, I realized that not only my life changed, but that of my mom, my sisters, and my brothers as well. Can you believe that? Not yet, but you will see. That is the power of harmony. It totally changes the way that you function, and it affects every human beings, but also plants and animals. Many people, when you visit their house, they have plants. I know a lot about plants, so I know how to look at what is there. Many plants are not healthy. Often it's just a twig with 1 or 2 leaves. I see so many of you laughing. You recognize it. My plants are flourishing. Not only that, I have 2 dogs. They're wild dogs. They were born in the park, grew up for the first 4 months of their life before they were caught. They grew up in the wild. And nobody could have them, nobody could take care of them. I took them in, and they are so lovely now. You would say they are so harmonious now. I just showered them with harmony, with love, care. I never raised my voice, I never raised my hand. Just patient. They were on TV, and I told those people that were interviewing me, I told them, I don't care if it takes 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. As long as they can make walks and be happy. The healing comes naturally. That is, you will become a natural healer to yourself and to everything and everybody around you. Wonderful. That is how you make the world a better place. Maybe just a drop in the ocean, but you know, many drops make a waterfall. It starts with non-violence. And you know, what I always say in the first class of this course is there is one very important thing that you must do in light of the subject of non-violence. That is, become your own best friend. First and foremost, non-violence starts with becoming your own best friend. Why? Because in the same way that you subconsciously act and react with aggression, depending on the situation, in the same way we are very harsh, unfair to ourselves, which is a form of violence. Our worst enemy very often is ourselves. The way that we talk to ourselves, the way that we demand perfection from ourselves, unreasonable perfection, unrealistic. We are our own worst critics. And as part of your practice, your reflection on the subject of non-violence, pay attention to this. Pay attention to how you are dealing with yourself, unfriendly and even aggressive ways. And then try to curve it, try to bend it. Be forgiving. You cannot forgive others if you cannot even forgive yourself. We will come back to this subject throughout the course because this is a very important aspect of your development in yoga. It's the way that you deal with yourself, your life, your imperfections, the mistakes that you make, etc. Non-violence is, first and foremost, non-violence towards yourself. And from there it can expand towards the environment. The yamas, there are 5, I mentioned them just before, are in fact refusals. So non-violence means that you refuse to go along with the violence that surrounds us. That means when confronted with violence, do not jump on that bandwagon. Do not go along with it. Do not act and react on it. Because every time you do, you end up in a lot of misery. We have to break that cycle. And only we can do that. We cannot point fingers and blame others. As a result of your development, you will not only start to see how you subconsciously have a tendency to act and react, leading to misery, leading to conflict, but you will open your heart and start to see the source of the violence. Now, I'm sounding a little bit complicated, but I will give you an example that I very clearly remember when I came to Korea, the first couple of years that I was here. I noticed there is a generation don't feel offended, but you know there is this habit of always wanting to be the first. It's usually older generation, ajumas. When I came to Korea, that you know, these days they are halmoni. They're older, of course, now. Like I am older. But you know, there's a subway, and you see an open seat. So you go towards that seat. You want to sit down, and bang. Elbow in your ribs and you're being pushed aside, and she sits down. What happens? Your heart rate goes up through the roof. You want to shout, you want to punch, you want to kill. What do? You try to put yourself in the shoes of that lady that pushed you out of the way. And you know what I saw? I saw somebody who had to fight for their lives. After the Second World War, Korea was poor, but it was even worse after the Korean War, 50-53. Even all the trees all disappeared from the mountains and the countryside, all being used for burning wood, for cooking. There was nothing left, poverty. So when the war was over, there were all these Korean mothers, who were taking care of big families. There were still, at that time, families of 10, 12 children, and husband, and often grandparents. And there was nothing to eat. After the war, the United Nations came with their trucks with food, rice, flour, sugar, and what have you. They drove into the villages, and people had to line up at the truck to be handed out food. And there was never enough. People in the back of the line ended up with an empty truck. You understand where the elbow comes from? If you, with 12 children at home, many mouths to feed, see that truck coming, you want to be the first. And anybody that keeps you from doing so, you push out of the way. And when you see that, you can't be angry anymore. When you understand that, you can't be angry anymore. That's the power of yoga. Insight, higher characteristic, which you have allowed to manifest because of sattva, and an open heart. The first reaction, of course, is anger, aggression. But you quickly switch into another mode that other people are not capable of doing. And you melt. And not only is that good for the person who pushed you out of the way, it's especially good for yourself. From now on, pay attention. Anytime. Anytime when you are in a situation where you get angry and you allow yourself to be angry, pay attention how long you suffer from that. And I tell you, the more harmonious you become, the longer the suffering. If I end up in a fight in traffic, getting angry and shouting and calling names, I messed up at least for 7 days, for a week, before I feel harmonious again. So I always avoid any kind of conflict, because I know the price I have to pay for that loss of control. Normal human beings don't notice, because life is full of those conflicts, small and big, and we go from one to another. But when you become more harmonious, more peaceful, the disharmony stands out even more. You don't want to suffer from that anymore. And that is your natural incentive to start paying attention. Now that you know about this, it won't be perfect. Even maybe on your way from the yoga studio after class, it may even happen in the bus or the subway or while you're driving that you get angry. But this time you say, oh, hey, wait. We discussed something. I remember something. And you try to take control. From that moment that you become conscious of what is happening and how you are acting and reacting, you'll try to take control. Practice makes perfect. You get better and better at it. There are technically 3 levels of violence. Physical violence, verbal violence, and also mental violence. Violence in thought. You think that it's of no consequence, right? It's obvious if I punch you, that's a form of violence. And if I do punch you, you will punch me back, obviously. If I shout at you, verbal violence, using bad language and so on, you will simply shout back at me, try to hurt me verbally. Mental violence, violence in thoughts, seems to not affect or have influence, but it has. Very much so. When you are in a room with people and you look at people with disdain, with contempt, Don't think that those other people don't know what you are doing, what you are feeling. They feel the same. They feel the negativity. Sometimes even a thought, a negative thought, a violent thought, can lead to physical violence because people feel that. They feel offended and they will, if they don't control themselves, they will just punch you in the face. The opposite is of course also true. If you have positive thoughts, the people in the room feel that too. It changes the atmosphere in the room. Try it out when you go to the doctor and you have to wait in the waiting room before your appointment is up. And you're surrounded by 6, 7 people that are also waiting. Just sit there and try to have a very negative thought. Just play as an experiment. You will see that people start to become uncomfortable. If they sit next to you, they might even get up and walk around or sit at another location. But try also the opposite. Try to sit there just with a big smile and just think of a beautiful sunny day with the birds singing their song and you know, just a very nice atmosphere. Create a nice atmosphere internally and see how that affects people. If you understand this, there is only one way to live your life. That is to be responsible not only for your own well-being, but that of others. From that day on, that you realize that, you will always try. You will not always be. You're only human. You will fail sometimes. You will have negative or aggressive thoughts sometimes. But the difference is that now you are conscious of it and you can control it. You can change it. From now on, you realize your responsibility in this life is not only your own well-being, but that of others. Also, people you don't know. You go to the supermarket and the person at the cash register is ignoring you and grumbling at you, and you think, what a bad person. No, what I see is before me there was another customer that was rude. So I'm very friendly to that person at the cash register. I don't know them, but I just say, hey, good morning. Thank you. Here you are. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye. And you know what happens? I walk out of the shop, next customer comes, and the person at the cash register is friendly to the next person. You can have a bad day, you know. That's not the person at the cash register's fault. It's not. When you understand this, when you start seeing this, you know that if you have a bad day, keep it to yourself. Even though you have a bad day, you can still be friendly and help other people to have a nice day. You know what? Your bad day will turn into a good day. Just because that interaction, there is a chemistry that makes your day better. It sounds very obvious, and it is obvious. I'm telling you nothing new. But what I'm telling you is that we are only human. We have a tendency to function subconsciously, physically, mentally. We have a tendency to function subconsciously. Once we get a grasp on that, it totally changes our life. And that of the people around you, the people that you have to do with. Non-violence. On page 2, on the fourth paragraph, you see the word Brahma mentioned. Brahma is that condition where there is one line. Brahma is in fact a synonym for God. It's total harmony. But paragraph 4 is about, we'll talk about this when we discuss the chakras also, but worth mentioning. After we are born, it is very important that the baby, the child, grows up in as much harmony as possible. If you are lucky, the lucky person that grew up in harmony, you have no memory of your early childhood. Is that correct? Do you remember when you were 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old? Many people don't. Why? Because you're in total harmony. Children that are confronted with disharmony, which is an unstable family, where the parents, for example, have open conflicts in front of the children, where there is no routine, daily routine, etc., no love, no support for the children, violence, abuse, children have memory. Even going back to a very early age, 1 year, 2 years old. The cause of that memory is the disharmony. Can you see that? So, Ali asked about time. When you are very harmonious, time passes very quickly. Because there is no memory created. When you have lots of experiences, ups and downs, violence, abuse, neglect, etc., time goes very, very slow. Because all these events cause memory. Now actually time is memory. You will notice in meditation, we will start today 10 or 15 minutes meditation. At the end of the course, we will approximately 40-45 minutes, we will meditate. There are meditations where the time just doesn't seem to pass. Opposed to that, there are meditations and we start singing Om at the end of the meditation and you think, what, already finished? When you are very focused and undisturbed in your meditation, time goes very fast. Just like the child that grows up in a very harmonious environment. When you are disturbed, busy, have thoughts during your meditation, time doesn't pass. And you're struggling with sitting there. I have to sit there for 45 minutes. When is he going to start singing Om? You recognize that? So it's all about condition. Is this important? Yes. A child that grows up in harmony thrives. It does very well in school. Very high grades at the end of the semester. It doesn't fight with other students. It follows the teacher's instructions, doesn't rebel. And in the end, that child will become a very mature, emotionally mature also, but very mature adult, capable of social relationships. And doing very well professionally also. A child that grows up in a very disturbed environment, disharmonious environment, can't go along with the curriculum. The score at the end of the semester is low, Sometimes so low that they have to double a class, they have to repeat. They are argumentative, fight with other kids. They rebel against the teacher. Later in life, they're emotionally not mature, incapable of social relationships, and they're often at the bottom of society doing simple jobs and basically a daily struggle to get by. So that is the power of harmony. And if you have grown up in a disharmonious environment, and as a result have stayed back in your development to a certain extent, you will make up for that when you start practicing yoga and create harmony in your life. I know because I am such a person. I grew up in a family of 7. 2 of my brothers, I had 3 brothers, so there were 4 boys, me and 3 brothers. 2 of my brothers have died in their mid-40s. I grew up with them. We did everything together. I would have died too in my mid-40s somewhere, like they did, if I had not discovered yoga when I was 20 years old. I created harmony where it wasn't there, and I started taking control. And everything that I lacked in terms of development, I made up for. It is because of those experiences in life that made me the yoga teacher that I am. Because yoga has a real value, and I, like no one else, know that. And that's why I stick to the traditional approach and refuse to go along with this modern yoga hype, the fashion yoga. Because it is a good exercise, but it doesn't offer what yoga really has to offer. Can you see the potential? And the key word is sattva. This is your homework. From today, you start paying attention when you feel aggression. Either whether it is coming from the outside, your surroundings, or whether it is come from internally, from the inside. But just observe, just be aware of it. Don't try to be perfect and control everything. Just see it as an experiment. See how you interact in the subway, in the supermarket, at home or at work, etc. Just an experiment. Interesting. When you start seeing it, seeing. And the next step is that you start to control it. At least to some extent. Questions?
Ron?
Yes, Neda.
Silence can also be a form of aggression, right? Like
What?
Silence can also be a type of aggression, like passive aggressive.
Yes, of course. Ignoring somebody by not reacting to somebody. It can be through text message.
Mm-hmm.
When you are texting with somebody and that person doesn't react or reacts hours later, or it may be far-fetched, but intuitively you feel that person's intention. That is, of course, that is a form of violence. That's why I never, even if I feel bad about you, I will still react to your message. It's just a matter of purity. Don't play games. Because if you play games, people play games with you. Don't go along with that. It's good. There's a lot of passive aggression. You can feel it in the way that people communicate with you. I told you like this and that. When you address the issue, they will say, oh no, I didn't do anything wrong. Because they don't recognize that it is actually a form of violence. For me, that kind of behavior is a red flag. In the past, I would try to correct people's behavior. It doesn't work. If a person communicates like that, wanting to hurt you without hurting you, or obviously hurting you, red flag. Just do not try to get involved with such a person. You try to correct them and it just leads to more frustration and more conflict and what have you. People will deny. How can you? I didn't do anything, I was silent, so what's wrong with that? Yeah, there's a lot of wrong with that, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult to define, so it's useless. You lose so much energy if you try to address something or correct something like that. For me, it's a red flag. I ignored red flags in the past because of subconscious functioning. You may have certain motives to want to be with a certain person. But if you look back, when everything got messed up, you look back, you know that there were red flags, and you ignored them. So that's one of the things that you all will learn. You have to learn to respect the red flags. I didn't in the past, and I think it's human, because we think other things will rise above it. It's more important, but in the end, it always comes back to haunt you. But that's how you become wiser. That's how you become more insightful. Okay. Yes.
So being positive and like being nice to other people seems to be on a stage of rajas. So can I consider it as better than being sattva?
Total sattva Total sattva means that you just exist. The moment that you think, there is a subtle rajas. Subtle. The moment that you speak, it's a little bit more than subtle. The moment that you move, it's rajas. You are human. 100% sattva does not exist. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. You and Ali have very sophisticated questions. Look, Buddhism goes out from the point of view that life is a valley of tears, is suffering. Because of that, we have to live through 1 million reincarnations before we reach heaven, before we reach paradise. In these 1 million lives, reincarnations, we make mistakes and learn and grow, evolve, evolution. It is so slow because human beings are stupid. We keep making the same mistake. You recognize it? Lena does this course for the 3rd time. Or was it the 5th time? That was not passive aggression. So. That's how important yoga is. That you become hungry for more. The reason why you manifest into a physical body is because of karma. You committed the ultimate sin in paradise. So you fall down from heaven. It's described not only in the Bible, but every scripture has the same kind of story. Ancient people intuitively knew how disharmony leads to manifestation in the material world. That is why when you are confronted with religion and you don't understand it fully, you see that people are very humble. People who understand religion, in its essence, not the dogmatic religion that we see these days in all religions of the world, they've all become very superficial mostly, but people who are truly, maybe I better use the word spiritual, you become naturally humble. Why? Because you know that it's only you that is responsible for all the misery you're experiencing. From the moment that you realize that, you start a cleanup operation. Instead of 1 million lives, your spiritual growth leads to an enormous reduction. That's advanced yoga. That's another, but interesting. I'm very practical and down to the ground. So I'm not going to say you must believe in reincarnation and in multiple lives. I do intuitively. But if you limit your process here on earth to this life without believing in multiple lives, we will come back to that later also. You just do what you can within this life and make it better. And I have seen enormous improvements on many levels that makes all that effort worth. And I know that if reincarnation does exist, I believe in it. I'm not telling you that you should, but if it does exist, I will have a better start in the next life. Can you see that? So the reason why you manifest into a physical body is disharmony in the first place. In the Bible it's called sin. But it's disharmony, technically. You have something to work out, and you can only work that out by living life. Towards the end of the course, we will read some text from Patanjali, and there is a sutra where Patanjali, in other words, he says, the world is your playground. If you play it consciously, it will lead to heaven. As long as you keep functioning subconsciously, instinctively, it leads to hell. And it really works. It's really true. I don't know if that answers your question. It was about sattva. What I'm trying to say is 100% sattva. If you are 100% sattva, you wouldn't be sitting here in a physical body. Your energy would be out there in the universe. At some point we will read Hatha Yoga Pradipika, chapter 1. I will explain this a little bit more. All these issues are being addressed. So I will explain in a practical way when we come across that text.
So I have one question.
Yes.
About sattva, that we have because I'm originally from Iran. So in Quran we have one story about because Ashab al-Kahf. So they sleep 300 years, and then after 300 years, they woke up, and everything their appearance was same, but they observed that there are many changes in their environment and new government and many things changes. So I'm asking that they was in the sattva because their body was same. And nothing changed in the body.
Yeah.
So it means that if someone be in the sattva for some moment, then the time doesn't affect in his body.
Yeah, like I said before, technically, there are stories like that. But have you ever met somebody like that? In the Bible, there is a story of Abraham and Sarah. According to the Bible, they were 800 and 900 years old. Sarah even had a child when she was 800 something old. That's symbolical. But there is a real meaning behind that symbolism. Why do they give these people such a high age? It's not because there were actually really people that were that old, but it is more like an indication of their status. Maybe it is trying to indicate that they, more than other people, were more sattvic, or what we call it a holy person. So you find many of this kind of symbolism in text, and the art is to find out what's behind it in a practical sense. So I haven't read that book that you're talking about, but I will try to explain everything that we read in that very practical, no-nonsense way. And based on those insights, you will better understand the other books that you read. Like the Bible, like the Quran, like Hindu books and other yoga books, you will better understand when you start realizing the practical meaning behind. It's called reading between the lines.
So it's like theory of relativity. It says, so if you consider a light particle, if you are an observer and looking at the light particle, it travels at that speed. But if you were sitting on the light particle, you're traveling at that speed. So it depends on the distance. So if you look at that particle from a greater distance, it appears static. I think what he's trying to ask in terms of time, it's probably the perception of where you sit and where you watch and where you observe, probably.
Yeah. What is time? If you reflect on the existence of the universe, which they say is 13 billion years old, which is mind-boggling. You know, there are trees in Canada, the sequoias or the redwoods, they can become 2,000 years old. As human beings, we think, 2,000 years old, that is when Christ was born, and you think, oh my God, that's so old, that is wow, that is amazing. But 2,000 years in the light of the universe, it's just a speck of dust. And as a human being, we are specks of dust. So time, it's in the eye of the beholder. If the universe was a being, it would see us maybe as like microbes with a lifespan of less than a second. Okay, let's have a short break. Then we'll start with asana practice. Still working?